Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name's Donna Quach. I use she, her pronouns. I'm with the College Success Foundation and program manager for the Washington Passport Network. Thanks for joining us for our fifth webinar of this academic year. Today, I'm really excited to introduce our guest speakers. But before we jump into that, just want to share that this webinar is being recorded and the webinar materials will be available later this week, including the recording. If we can go to the next slide, Laura. Thank you. Before we get started, we do want to take some time to do a land acknowledgement. So with gratitude and respect, the Washington Passport Network acknowledges that we live and work on the ancestral lands and waters of the Indigenous people who are still here with us today. And I'm joining you all from the lands of the Coast Salish people, and specifically Duwamish. If you are interested in learning more about which land you are living and occupying, there is a link to the Washington Tribes map, as well as another resource that's provided by OSPI. Okay, so for this afternoon, I'm really excited to introduce you all to our guest speakers, Amy Magisos and Laura Coghlan, who are here with us today to talk about post-secondary basic needs, security, and supporting students experiencing homelessness. All right, Amy and Laura, I'll hand it off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Welcome, everyone. I am super excited to see such a range of participants showing up in the chat. We've got K-12 school districts, community providers, colleges and universities, and other intersecting agencies. And my colleague Amy Magisos and I are super excited for the opportunity to present to you today and explore new opportunities for collaboration. My name is Laura Coghlan. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as a program administrator for supporting students experiencing homelessness at the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. I also am a fairly new member of the Passport leadership team as of last fall. Amy, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Amy Magisos. I serve as Associate Director of Strategy and Partnerships at the Washington Student Achievement Council. My work focuses broadly on understanding and addressing students' basic needs security for post-secondary students in Washington. And I also partner with Laura in administration of the Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness grant program. And I'm colleague to Don Cipriano McCafferty here at WASAC, who is Assistant Director with the Passport to Careers program. So we have many intersections. I'll pass back to you, Laura.
Great. So where are we headed today? Our agenda for this webinar will include about 10 minutes talking about what do we know about basic needs insecurity among Washington's college students. We'll also spend another 10 minutes talking about some of the ways in which Washington as a state is addressing these challenges, including both recent policies and investments, and we'll take a deeper dive into the Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness program as one of those example programs. We'll spend some time thinking about collaboration opportunities across programs and feature some example approaches from 2 colleges. And we will close by looking forward and having some time for Q&A at the end.
So my goal right now is to be able to share with you at the kind of big picture state level what we know about students' basic needs security levels in Washington and how our state has been working to try to increase supports for students. I'll share some of what's known about how common post-secondary basic needs and security is for Washington students in just a moment. But first, before we go there, let's take a moment. What do we mean when we say students' basic needs? If you would please in the chat, add some examples of students' basic needs that should be priorities. Just pop it in the chat. I'd like to see the chat fire up with different examples of basic needs that you think should be priorities. for our student stability. I see housing, food, safety is another one, water, clothing, transportation, medical care. Absolutely. Thanks to everyone for adding those in there. Next slide. I want to share with you a little bit about how the Washington Student Achievement Council views this. So as part of a council, which includes all sectors of education in Washington, 2-year and 4-year institutions and K-12, the council has recognized that basic needs and stability undermines students' ability to persist and complete a post-secondary credential. So it has tied basic needs support to the state strategy for post-secondary attainment. Attainment is completely affected by the basic needs that you have added in the chat there. The council in 2019 determined that with a lot of input from stakeholders, that the priorities focus should be on food and housing security, and that there was also a need to be focusing on childcare and healthcare, including mental health care, knowing that there's a broad range of basic needs, including transportation, clothing, and other things, some of which you've added in the chat. Next slide, please. So how common is basic needs insecurity among Washington students? I'd like to be able to give you a broad sense of this. So in fall 2022, Washington fielded a statewide survey in 39 partner campuses to assess basic needs insecurity in the areas of food, housing, security, and homelessness. This survey also asked students about their access to childcare if they were parenting students, and health and mental health care. Nearly 10,000 students replied to the survey, and we had high representation from students of color, first-generation students, and low-income students. And I want to share this top line finding that you really see reflected in this slide. Students reported experiencing basic needs insecurity in the prior year at very high rates. In fact, 1 in 2 students reported experiencing insecurity in food and housing and homelessness in the previous year. And it's surprising for some that students at both CTCs and 4-year baccalaureates had similar insecurity rates. Takeaway here really is that this is not just a problem of a few struggling students, it's a problem across the state and at high levels. Next slide, please. So thinking about that and looking at it in a little bit more detail, breaking it down, want to make you aware of what that looks like for food insecurity and housing insecurity, and homelessness is a separate category. So using federal measures on this survey, Washington students reported that about 4 out of 10 of them, or 38%, experienced food insecurity in the prior month to taking the survey. 3 out of 10 experienced housing insecurity in the prior 12 months, and 1 out of 10 students experienced homelessness in the prior 12 months. And next slide, please. Not too surprisingly, for those of you working in colleges and in K-12, this was not evenly spread across all students. Some populations of students experienced it at higher rates than their peers. So looking at race, ethnicity, American Indian, Alaska Native, and also Black or African American students experienced the highest rates of basic needs insecurity. And we see that reflected in the national data as well. Other populations of students who responded with high rates, higher than average rates of basic needs insecurity included former foster youth. They really had the highest rates of basic needs insecurity among all subpopulations. Also students with low income, disability, students who reported being the parent or guardian of a dependent, and students who reported belonging to the LGBTQIA community. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, we wanted to understand more about students' access to healthcare, including mental and behavioral health services. What we found that this is really another challenge students are experiencing. Only half of students reported being able to reliably access needed healthcare in the prior year. And even less, 34% said they had reliable access to needed mental and behavioral health services. Next slide, please. So as you're listening to this and thinking about it on this high level, you might be thinking, well, there are public benefits, there's community and campus supports that could be help easing these challenges that students are experiencing. But the survey findings show that less than half of the Washington students who replied and who were struggling with basic needs and security reported actually accessing those resources. This is echoed in similar national research and really points to the opportunity to help students better tap into existing resources. It also shows us the opportunity while we're doing that to identify gaps in services and resources. So with that very high level overview, I want to shift into a bit of context around what Washington has been doing to address these challenges. And I'll point you to the chat also. The full basic needs survey findings are available in the link that Laura shared in the chat if you're curious to know more. So many colleges for many, many years have been working with partners to address these student basic needs and security concerns. But at the state level, policy changes and investments have been slower, I'll say. There's room to grow. So I'd like to give you a really brief overview of some recent legislation focused on supporting students' basic needs. Next slide, please. So before 2023, the majority of the legislation and investment in Washington has been what I would call limited in scope and also in time, so short-term kinds of investments. So some examples on this slide show that. So on the left-hand side, supports only for the community and technical colleges have included some of the items listed here. So emergency assistance grants, increased access to state childcare subsidies, and a short-term pilot that was granting funds for increased mental health support. What I call limited time investments on the right-hand side are things that are pilots or they're temporary. So bridge grants added an extra $500 annually for students receiving the state financial aid. But again, that was temporary, though there is a bill this legislative session to make this permanent. I've also added in there that there's been a pilot for it's completing its second year for 4 institutions to really look toward supporting navigation for students to consider and be able to have health insurance. Just some examples there. I'd like to focus next on 2 really important statewide legislative pieces that happened this past session in 2023. So really, for the first time, there was statewide cross-sector legislation and funding passed to address post-secondary basic needs in public 2-year and 4-year colleges. And I would say having the data about how prevalent it is helped us to be able to achieve this legislation. It's really a big achievement for Washington. So on the right side of the slide in blue, you can see the Post-Secondary Basic Needs Act. So this act has 4 parts that really helps institutions build a strong infrastructure of basic needs support. So it provides funding for both 2-year and 4-year public institutions to have navigators who can help all students access community and campus support resources. It also requires institutions to create and report on basic needs strategic plans. It requires that Washington keep assessing basic needs insecurity prevalence. That'll include another statewide survey, similar to the one I was just describing, that would happen next fall. And finally, it encourages Washington to keep innovating through a pilot focused on food insecurity with the proactive approaches. That'll be a pilot for 3 years. On the left side in orange, you can see that in 2023, the Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness grant program was expanded to all public community and technical colleges and public baccalaureates, and it's made permanent. So this grant program will be continuing long term. This particular program has a lot of connections to Passport to Careers and a lot of opportunities for collaboration. So what we're going to do next is take a deeper dive on this supporting students experiencing homelessness. So I'll pass it to Laura to tell you more about it.
Thanks, Amy, for sharing that context on post-secondary student basic needs and our state legislators' considerable efforts to try to address those challenges. As Amy said, we're going to take a deeper dive into one of those programs. It happens to be a program for which I am program manager. Love this program, the Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness program. And it has very specific and articulated overlap with the foster care population that Passport serves. The state legislature passed its first bill to launch the Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness as a pilot program back in 2019. And then just this last May, they passed a bill to make the program permanent and expanded eligibility to all public baccalaureate institutions. We sometimes think of those as the four-year universities, as well as all of the community and technical colleges. Who is eligible for support under SSEH, as I will call it from here? Any student who is enrolled in college who is experiencing homelessness or at imminent risk of homelessness, or any student who aged out of foster care. In other words, they were in foster care at the time that they completed high school. Public universities and colleges are awarded relatively small grants to sustain these programs. Over the years, they've ranged from probably $95,000 to about $135,000. All of the programs provide some form of housing support, food access, and case management, although the colleges do vary in their approach and their emphasis based on their own program structure and their student population. For example, thinking of housing support, some colleges may provide direct funding to students to help them secure a rental, or they might help cover a back rent payment. They might pay for a short-term motel stay in the case of an emergency. And some have even established contracts with local landlords, or they rent units in their campus housing to serve SSEH students during the school year. The programs also support students with other intersecting basic needs and securities, such as providing food pantry, hygiene supplies, meal vouchers, grocery store gift cards, laundry or shower access, transportation, technology, clothing, storage lockers, other basic needs that students present in their unique circumstances. Partner networks is featured on this slide because it is integral. SSEH's effectiveness as a program depends on awareness of and developing relationships with community providers, as well as other college programs. The caseworkers for SSEH make appropriate referrals for students, and they conduct intake with these students to determine how to connect them to the right resources. Over the 4 pilot years of this program, SSEH case managers made over 29,000 referrals to external agencies and programs. Other side benefits that have emerged from this program since it started is that many colleges have also worked on infrastructure improvement and made institutional changes to raise awareness about basic needs, reduce stigma, streamline student applications for assistance, increasing awareness of available resources, all because, or in part because they were participating in the SSEH program. Assessing the prevalence of housing insecurity among enrolled students is part of this enabling law as well, as Amy mentioned, so that recurring administration of a statewide survey to understand basic needs and security among this population has a second impetus from this bill, from this program. A statewide learning community of SSEH providers meets a couple times a year to share practices and learn from one another. That group also developed recommendations for addressing housing basic needs and security and for improving support to former foster youth, which we then put into our legislative report. That version of the story was a lot of words. I'm trying now with an image to kind of explain the overlap and intersections. The outer circle in this diagram represents that SSEH serves students experiencing homelessness who weren't in foster care necessarily. They were just experiencing homelessness. But there is overlap in the SSEH student population. Passport eligible students are also eligible to receive additional support through SSEH, hence the inset circle here. For students who are eligible for Passport, Passport does have the ability to provide more robust support for those who are seeking a college credential or apprenticeship than SSEH does, particularly in the form of tuition scholarships, wraparound support, and often that support can be provided over multiple years. However, as we know, some former foster youth do not qualify for Passport, and those students can still receive support through SSEH. For example, many of our programs serve students who were in foster care when they completed high school, but they are now over the age limit. They may be over 26 years old or had not enrolled for the first time in college by the age of 21, and so find themselves ineligible for the formal Passport to Careers program. The two-way arrow in the center of the slide attempts to illustrate the integral case management and navigation functions of both SSEH and Passport. SSEH case managers, Passport designated support staff, and now the new basic need navigator positions that were associated with the passage of the Basic Needs Act. They all help to connect students with college and community resources and providers, again, based on students' unique circumstances. The arrow points in both directions because K-12 foster youth liaisons, community providers, and other college programs, staff, faculty also refer students back to SSEH and Passport programs on the college campuses. SSEH and Passport share an intersecting eligible student population. Case management and resource navigation for students with foster care experience are integral aspects of both programs, and both programs rely on awareness of other community providers and resources to develop and maintain a network for referral and student support. There are many opportunities for collaboration across these two programs. If you're wondering if there is a college offering this program in your neighborhood, thanks to the legislative commitment and action, the SSEH program we're talking about today is not a small pilot. It's a permanent program distributed throughout the state's public colleges. There are 33 programs actively serving students this year, and 4 more are in the planning phase and will likely start serving students this coming July. If you have a public college in your service area, there's a good chance that it has an SSEH program. And I'd like to share a link to the contact sheet. Thanks, Amy, for the SSEH programs. That's a reference for you to be able to make connections in your region. I'm going to quickly cover just a couple of highlights from the pilot to describe the service population. Over 4 years of the pilot, the colleges served over 6,700 students through SSEH programs. I think Amy will help post the links to our legislative report that we just turned in December and executive summary in the chat for those who want to read more about what we learned here. And a few demographic highlights of these 6,700 students. Students of color represented half of the students served. 51%, in fact, of the students served during the pilot years were students of color. And in nearly every year of the pilot, the proportion of students of color served by SSEH exceeded the proportion of students of color enrolled at the colleges and universities. This data point echoes national and state data showing that Black, African American, Native American and Alaska Native, and Hispanic Latinx students are disproportionately experiencing homelessness and housing insecurity. Food insecurity was really common among this population. Even if it wasn't a presenting issue, it was a concurrent issue. For 80% of the students served by SSEH were experiencing food insecurity. It's important to note that only 47% of those who were experiencing food insecurity were known to be receiving basic food or SNAP benefits. Majority served were female. That's 68% of those in the community college sector and 60% in the public baccalaureate sector identified as female. The average age differed a little depending on sector. Community and technical college students tended to be older, with 69% 25 or older, while most of the public baccalaureate students were under 25. 65% of those students were under 25. In the pilot years, the SSEH program served 304 former foster youth. Supporting students' basic needs with housing, case management, and other accommodations helps them stay enrolled. 93% of students in the post-baccalaureate sector and 87% of those in the community technical college sector completed the term in which they received SSEH support. And most of those students persisted to the next term at their colleges or had already completed a credential by the next term. So as a way to begin to explore how colleges and partners can collaborate across programs at their colleges and with their communities, I'm excited to invite, we're going to stop screen sharing, and we're going to invite a couple of representatives from colleges in our state to share a bit about their approaches. I think we want to make sure that Ariana and Merritt are able to unmute at this point.
Hi, Laura. Yes, I can.
Thank you, Ariana. Merritt, are you able to unmute as well?
Now I think I am. Yes.
Perfect. We just wanted to make sure that we had that technical ability. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much. So Ariana joins us from Lower Columbia College, which is located in Longview, Washington. And Merritt is joining us from Lake Washington Institute of Technology up in Kirkland, Washington. I was hoping that each of you might start by introducing yourselves and situate us a bit in terms of your role at your college, kind of what programs are in your portfolio, and where is your role situated in the organizational structure. Ariana, would you like to start?
Yeah, I can definitely start. Thank you, Amy and Laura. My name, as was mentioned, Ariana Muro, she, her pronouns, and I work at Lower Columbia College as the Assistant Director of Workforce Services. I am also the designated passport support staff. So I work closely with our former foster youth under that program. How our institution kind of works together to address some of these areas is actually the SSEH, the basic navigator, and the passport designated support staff, which is myself, are all under the same department, which is our workforce and career services department. So I think having that flow into the work actually helps a lot with the referrals and working together. Our basic foods navigator or a basic navigator just started not that long ago, and she's actually located within our food pantry. And then our case manager, who is just like our regular case manager, is also located with us in our department. And then I'm the backup for any of those case management opportunities for students. And I take all of our former foster youth under the passport to case manage for SSEH or any other emergency grants that we have. that is kind of how our flow works at Lower Columbia College. And we try to keep all of that together because that allows us to be able to evaluate any applications that come through our department. We have a universal only one application for any emergency assistant funds. So students, if they're going through an emergency and they need any support, they fill out that application, then we vet it, and we make an appointment with the student for a further intake to match a navigator. So either if they're former foster youth under the passport umbrella, they usually have already met me and they just come to me. And then all the other students are divided up between our two other navigators. And then within that intake, we actually have the ability to share about all of our on-campus resources, which include our food pantry, our laundry room, our mailbox, showers, hygiene bags, and then we also talk about what service they need for housing support, which if it's either a hotel stay, if they're like homeless and on the street and they need a place to go in the immediate sense, or if they're being faced with an eviction, we help with that. So we evaluate that within the intake, but we also have the ability to do some on-site in the moment services on campus for students. So that is kind of how those services flow together and what we do at Lower Columbia College. I think I answered all your questions, but let me know if I didn't address something.
It was great, Ariana. Thank you so much. We will return to ask follow-up questions after Merritt positions us. Merritt, would you like to introduce?
Yes. Hi, my name is Merritt Carrillo, and I use she, her pronouns as well. I work at Lake Washington Institute of Technology, and my position title is resource coordinator, but that involves multiple facets of helping students with basic needs, insecurities. So I coordinate the Supporting Students Experiencing Homelessness grant, the SSEH. I'm also the benefits navigator, helping students connect with resources and support on campus and in the community. And I am the DSS for the passport program. I work under the workforce development umbrella on the same team, and we're within the student services division on campus, which I think is really helpful in always being kind of top of mind when there's student services meetings. So we're able to talk about our funding programs and support with advisors and enrollment services and financial aid. And so we can all work together on the same larger division. I think that really makes the flow really nice. We also have the Office of Student Life within the same student services division. So there's just kind of multiple ways that students and the people working on campus can connect with a student that may need basic needs resources. And so then they're able to refer students directly to me, either by email, calling. We have a Starfish / we call it Legend online referral system that's used to take notes when meeting with students. So for the advisors, but they also can, anyone on campus, faculty as well, can refer students to me that way. And one of the main ways I get referrals is through students who've applied for our Student Emergency Assistance Grant. We have one application for that, and that is, it goes through our financial aid office, but once students apply, whether they get awarded or not, they get 2 different emails coming from me. Luckily, I have a wonderful assistant that emails them on my behalf now, because I have so many other roles that can't also be emailing all the hundreds of students that apply for our Student Emergency Assistance Grant. But it's on my behalf, so they have my contact information, and we send helpful resources in that email follow-up. And then if students indicate that they have a housing emergency as part of their application for the Student Emergency Assistance Grant, they're referred to me through our Starfish Legend system. So I contact those students separately in addition to offer additional support and one-on-one meeting. And I get referrals. I also refer to a lot of our support systems when working with students, like financial aid, Veterans Center, our Office of Student Life, TRIO, other workforce development programs, advisors. So there's lots of different ways that we can kind of go back and forth helping students get the support they need. We have an intake form as well that's located on our community resource webpage. So if students prefer to share their circumstances that way, it gets sent to me, so then I reach out to them to help with different resources and possibly funding support if they're experiencing a housing insecurity. And also coming up, I share information about resources with our Student Services Division and within the Workforce Development team. And I'm planning a community resource fair next week, actually, that is bringing 40 community organizations and programs to the campus so that the students and community can have easier access to important resources like housing, food, healthcare, mental health, transportation, technology, legal assistance, disability support, employment, training and education. And one of the things I'm most excited to is cultural specific support. Like we have Brazilian community services coming and Africans on the East Side and a Ukrainian refugee health board support, Centro Cultural Mexicano, a Muslim community resource center, a pride organization. So it's been exciting that so many people, so many organizations want to come. It's reminds me of if you invite someone to a birthday party post-pandemic, you get everyone coming. It's kind of like that when planning a community resource fair. So I'm really excited to see how that brings more connections with our community partners or potential community partners. We also have community partners that regularly come to campus, but these are in addition. So we're hoping that some can be regular visitors, or it can just at least have this softer handoff when we're referring students to a particular resource. And not just me, it can also empower other people on campus to help students connect with resources because I'm only one person, so I need their help too. So I'm excited for that, for the organizations to come to campus and see all the students and also community members can come and also get to meet all of those organizations that I've been referring students to. So.
Well, thank you, Merritt. I attempted to post the link for that community resource fair in our chat in case there are folks who are up in that area and would like to come join and network or participate in that event. What a great event that sounds like. I think you both did an excellent job helping us understand all of the hats that you wear and how you've created these sort of centralized resource hubs, universal intake for students so they don't need to navigate everything on their own. They could come through a uniform intake process and that there are staff there ready to help them get connected. And I would say, I want to follow up just a little bit with a nudge about thinking of our audience today. What are some of the ways in which you build and maintain relationships with community partners as you're thinking about how to support former foster youth? Merritt gave a great example of having a community resource fair and bringing folks together to network. I'm also thinking back on a conversation, Ariana, prompting you maybe to share a little bit about your work with the local K-12 districts and CASA, Janus Youth, some of those other initiatives that you have going on with your community partners, if you're willing to.
Yes, thank you. So I specifically am able to connect with the school districts here. I try to stay connected and offer one-on-one appointments for former foster youth or foster youth who are going to age out and are interested in attending a college or apprenticeship and kind of share about the passport program. However, I also participate in what we have, it's called like a homeless direct services council kind of group. And so it actually brings many community members that include Janus Youth, the Emergency Support Shelter, our community housing that we have here locally that houses our homeless population, our Salvation Army that actually they just created a Hope Village. So it houses I'm not quite sure how many, but it does provide shelter for our community. And so the invitations also goes out to school districts, nonprofit organizations, and any others who applies. So those meetings are monthly, and we meet to talk about any resource fairs that are going on or any events that are going on, to be able to share with our students, and then also share what we're doing on campus as well. So I get to participate in those meetings. Our workforce navigator also participates in some of our meetings in partnership with the Salvation Army, specifically around the Hope Village. And we're able to have that partnership where we go and share resources on their site, and help with any like applying for food, public benefits, or et cetera, anything like that that they may need some support with. So that is kind of how we stay connected. We do have other partnerships. However, we don't have as much housing opportunities around our area as about like many other places. So that is one of our biggest struggle, but we do have those partnerships out in the community, and we consistently are referring students out there, and then also have close relationship with food pantries outside of our community, specifically when our campus is closed, and try to connect them in that way as well.
Thank you so much for elaborating a bit more on that, Ariana. Merritt, do you have other examples that you'd like to share about how you build and maintain relationships with external partners or community partners?
Yes, and that was great to hear about the community group that meets monthly. Wow, that's awesome. I hope that we can get something like that going up in King County. Maybe there is already something, I just don't know about it. But so we have some existing community partners that were developed like even pre-pandemic days, prehistoric days, that we have a couple of different employment resources that are coming to our campus once a week or every other week to work with students, that like through YWCA, there's an employment specialist that comes to help students that are receiving basic food assistance in our BFET program, help them if they are looking for employment opportunities, and they have various supports that they can provide those students. Pacific Associates is another community partner that we have that provides employment support. And then we have Northwest Education Access that I'm so excited comes once a week now this quarter, because we had so many students come and see her last quarter that she's able to come once a week now. And she likes to sit in our main student area, which we call the East Mall. And so there's lots of student action. Yay, I love Northwest Education Access. And I think it really helps people see her and like keep her front of mind, so like, oh, if I have someone who kind of fits the category, between 16 and 29, that is, non-traditional student, which is pretty much all of our students at LW Tech, we can let them know that she's going to be down at that area on Wednesdays, from this time, or here's her email or her phone number to text her, and just really helps kind of keep that communication going, and those constant referrals, sending students her way to get additional support. Because I definitely appreciate having more support for students, since with the sheer numbers of referrals that we get, it can be challenging with being just one woman show. But I also look forward to hopefully through the Community Resource Fair, making some connections with the Housing Authority. Seattle Housing Authority is coming now that they've opened today, yay, their Housing Choice Voucher Program, which is the formerly known as Section 8 housing. It hasn't opened in I don't know how long. So I'm really hoping that they can come on a regular basis, possibly, because that's one of the things our students really need help with, is finding affordable housing or subsidized housing. But we have a couple of other organizations that are coming to the fair that also provide housing advocacy and legal support, and also emergency funding. If they've already been funded through SSEH, maybe they've already gotten an emergency grant and they're still coming up with barriers. It's really essential to have some of those nonprofits and community organizations or programs out there that can continue to help them until they're able to be in a more stable situation, which can be really challenging as a student. So yeah, I think those are, oh, we also have I think it's going to be a pretty permanent community partner with Community Health Plan of Washington. We've had an amazing response to having them on campus, also in the main student area, a couple times a month, especially during the open enrollment time, and now with insurance options for undocumented students. It's been really helpful to have someone there that can answer their questions and even just whip out the laptop and sign them up for health and healthcare. So that's been really helpful to reduce barriers and just bring the resources to the students. And also, if they're not on campus, if they're virtual, then at least we as workers are seeing those resources more often and think, oh, I can refer that student who's in need of healthcare to Community Health Plan of Washington. And I know this person that I work with, and I can, give that softer handoff. So I think that's, yeah, and hopefully we'll add to that list after next week. That's my hope. So.
It's great. It's not just about identifying partners, it's about maintaining the relationships and constantly expanding that network, isn't it? It's not just a one and done. We have to sustain those relations. If you were going to recommend a practice or give advice based on your experience of working with former foster youth who are enrolled in your programs, if you were going to give a piece of advice to other institutions, what would you suggest?
That one's a little bit hard to think about it a little bit. But I think that one thing I have worked really hard with working with passport students is always having an immediate solution. It may not be the best, it may not be, it may be just a temporary thing. And so that is one of the challenges I continue to work with, and having to be able to support them in that moment. If they come to me and they ask a question and it may not be something I actually know, how I respond to them, how I help them, and let them know like we can figure it out. It really does come down to if they will come back for future supports, or know that they have someone on campus. I think that sometimes it can be very intimidating, asking or even just sharing your story, or just being like, I have to ask someone else for help and I have to tell them why, and I have to share all my situation, can be a very scary thing to do for our younger youth, our former foster youth. And I think that is what I have worked on, being able to support them in the moment. And if it's not me who they may need, I go with them to who they need to talk to. If it's about a different situation, if it's about referrals to a different organization that I work with, I make that phone call with them on the spot. We do their outreach together. Or if I'm able to provide them any emergency support, for example, like we do immediate gift cards, like that is something I can get you today. If you need food, that's something we can get you from the food pantry. If it's like, trying to find your classroom, I will walk you to your classroom. So I have worked really hard with others in our department as well to kind of build onto that relationship of, we want to meet you, we want you to be here. But it is sometimes it's hard to really have students engage. And I do think that it's not because they don't want to, it's just because it could be something that may be hard for them to do. It may be hard for them to trust someone, to share their story, or to just even ask for help, especially in, housing instability and food insecurity is really hard to address, especially nowadays. It is very hard out there. And so providing that service and providing that support is something I would always suggest that you are able to do. Yes, and Amy, I saw your comment. A warm handoff definitely is a big thing. It is. That's why I try really hard to work within the school districts to meet the students even before they come to our campus, or even before they even start thinking about college, their junior, senior years, just kind of sharing like this is an opportunity for you. Just think about it. It may be something you're interested in, or it may not be, but that there's your options that are out there for you.
you so much, Ariana. Merritt, would you like to close out this section with some advice from your perspective?
Yeah, be happy to. So just to give you a little more, everyone a little more perspective, I'm currently working with one passport student. So it's a small but mighty program, like Washington Tech. And Demetra, my supervisor, reminded me that it's not that we're a new passport program, but that we've had some, we have a smaller college and we've had some turnover, and so we're kind of slowly building it now, and working on how to identify more passport eligible students, but also having this kind of open shop of I'm the resource coordinator and I can help you no matter what program you're in has been really helpful. I think to reduce barriers, and for the student that I have been working with, she prefers to speak Spanish, and I also speak Spanish. So I've gone to meetings with her, helped interpret, just to kind of help her feel more comfortable. Like when she wanted to learn about the iBest program, that really helped. And she had questions, how to get signed up and things. And some of the things I couldn't really do myself. I used to work in advising, but I don't really have those codes and things now. But because she was comfortable with me and asking me in Spanish, I can help her and kind of connect her with where she needs to go, or I can, like Ariana was saying, make that call with her. Even though it's interesting, this student in particular, I've met her online. I've never met her in person. So I've seen her in Teams meetings and in email. So interesting, I've never actually seen her in person. So I haven't made a call in person with her. It's an interesting, and she hasn't requested any community or funding support through all this. She's been very well connected with passport scholarships and different WASFA funding and things. So it's really been a unique process to see how well connected the student is, but then also still how to meet her where she is, and help support her in her college journey. And it's all about resources to me. So it's really all, if it's a campus resource or helping her feel more comfortable, getting information about a particular program on campus, or eventually maybe a community resource. I have been trying to get her to be connected with Northwest Education Access. I have to say, I feel like that's a perfect community partner for our former foster youth. Just another piece of advice, I think, if you have that program similar like that in your area. But yeah, I think my main advice would be to try to connect with as many different support programs on campus or in your area as possible, so they know who you are and they're always seeing your name. And then hopefully you'll be getting the referrals, when they do run into a student that's in need, and a potential passport student. But then also you can easily refer or ask those support programs questions, because they already know you and feel comfortable. So I guess creating that really warm connection and community, or communication with either community partner or an organization you're referring to, or even your own college or campus departments or support systems. I think that really helps. And maybe I'm lucky because I'm in a smaller college, so I can kind of literally know everyone on campus. I don't know everyone, but I think I know almost everybody in the support program. So it's been really nice too, to be able to kind of just, get to see them in division meetings, and so. And I don't know if I saw any questions coming up in the chat, but if anyone has questions, I'm sure you'll let us know.
Yeah, I wanna thank you both for Ariana and Merritt for sharing your approaches, your incredible insights, the incredible heart that you bring to this work. I know that I feel inspired. I invite participants to share some love in the chat for you. I've seen that showing up in the screen. Or in fact, if you've been inspired by something here, some future collaboration idea that you were sparked by, as a way of give back. If you want to pop that into chat, that'd be great. I'll read some examples. We're going to return to, I think we have, exactly 3 minutes left for Q&A. So I just thank you so much, panelists, for that great work. And I think we will close out with a little bit of Q&A. They're great. I think we've had a couple of questions along the way. That have been answered. Some bill number questions, some others. Do we have, I can't see the hands from my view. Do I have a facilitator that can help me see if there are questions?
I don't
Laura,
think there's any hands, but some questions in the chat. Yeah, go ahead, Amy.
yeah, I was just going to reply to the question about how Passport and McKinney-Vento connect. I would say we've had the opportunity through the Building Changes network of homeless liaisons in K-12 to be able to help them understand how post-secondary public institutions are getting organized and building out supporting students experiencing homelessness program, and also now the navigators. We have a vision for the future where all institutions, post-secondary institutions in Washington would have a direct contact for students, including high school students and their supporters and liaisons, so that there can be a bridge between high school McKinney-Vento liaisons and the post-secondary supporting students experiencing homelessness contacts and liaisons. So we've begun to build that. It is very new that we even have these people within the publics to serve as contacts for students who may be experiencing homelessness or be former foster. So we want to build that bridge, and for all of us, the contact list of institutions that have supporting students experiencing homelessness does serve as a first point of contact. If you're within a K-12, if you're within a community-based organization or nonprofit, please do reach out to your partners doing this work in the community and technical colleges and the public universities. If you are an institution or connected to an institution that does not yet have these services, and you'd like to work with us in the next legislative session to expand and make sure that all institutions have it, we'd love to work with you. So thanks to those who have already brought that up in the chat. We'll be connecting with you soon.
All right. Thank you, Amy and Laura, for that depth of information that you provided to us. Let me just change my setting. And thank you, Ariana and Rhett, for sharing the incredible work that you're both doing on your individual campuses. This was just a great session of learning about recommended practices, and we can hope that you all can continue the conversation and join WASAC and SBCTC in those future convos. If you are interested in participating in upcoming WPN webinars and want to stay in the loop with what we're doing for the Washington Passport Network, we encourage you to sign up and join our email list, and you can feel free to email us at passport@collegesuccessfoundation.org. It was asked in the chat earlier, but want to reiterate that the materials for this webinar will be shared with everyone that's registered by the end of this week. And please take a moment to fill out our post-webinar survey. We love to hear feedback, and we share that information with the presenters as well. I hope everyone has a good rest of the week and take good care. We'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.